what you reading?
Oh, nothing. Just a Dashiell Hammett novel.
Oh, The Maltese Falcon? The Thin Man? The Red Harvest?
The Glass Key.
Not sure I'm familiar with that one. What's it about?
An amateur detective enters the seedy underworld of the mob to solve a murder.
Okay, you're still waiting to see if the detectives find the seeds, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm almost at the end, and there hasn't even been a mention of a potted plant, let alone an urban farm.
The garden plot thickens.
From Webisodes, this is Growability, a digital documentary at the intersection of urban agriculture, food security, and community.
On this episode, we speak to Lia Babitch, co-manager of Turtle Tree Seed Initiative, which is also part of Camphill Village Copake, a nonprofit intentional community of adults with developmental differences.
Camphill is truly inspiring. It's a worldwide group of communities designed to include people with and without intellectual disabilities, empowering people to grow, learn, and achieve together.
And the Turtle Tree Seed Initiative is a nonprofit seed company within Camphill Village Copake that sells 100% open-pollinated vegetable, herb, and flower seeds.
There are so many places where Lia's work crosses into the core themes of growability.
I totally see why you wanted to have a talk with her. The way she thinks about things like social agriculture.
Love that phrase.
And even Camphill's commitment to embracing everyone of every ability aligns so closely with the work that we're doing at the Patch and on Growability.
Yep, and the Turtle Tree Seed Initiative only sells what they call safe seeds, which are grown using biodynamic and organic practices, something we've talked about with Dr. Mike Curry.
Right. I hope we get to talk to her about that in the interview.
Before we hop on the old virtual horn with Lia, if you like this show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
If YouTube is more your thing, please like and subscribe.
In either case, head over to growabilitypod.com to sign up for our fresh and nutritious newsletter for all the latest from Growability and our guests.
As Joe always says, it does go both ways. Email us at hosts@growabilitypod.com.
We read every email we get, and we always want your ideas, questions, and future guest suggestions.
And who's got 2 L's and a beautiful office? Tech Alliance, Southwestern Ontario does. Thanks so much for inviting us to record this round of interviews in this beautiful space.
And now let's dig into the seedy world of Lia Babitch. Thanks for joining us, Lia.
Thank you.
Where do we find you today?
Today I am in Camphill Village in Copake, New York. And I'm sure you have questions about that.
Yes.
So I'll let you ask them.
Sure.
Okay, we'll start there. I'm not sure how much our audience knows about your organization that you work with. So let's start there. What is Camphill?
Camphill it's actually a worldwide organization. And but it's also a series of independently run communities which work with people with developmental challenges. And the community that I'm a part of, which is in Copake, New York, has about, so we're on about 700 acres.
Wow.
Most of it is woodland and fields and forests and wetlands. And in our beautiful valley, we have a community that includes about 240 people, about 100 of whom have developmental challenges. And then we have long-term volunteers like myself who live here. I live with my family here. And in my house, I also have 5 folks with developmental challenges. And then we also have young volunteers who come from all over the world, usually for a gap year, but sometimes for more. And so there are two people right now in my house who are here for a year, and one of them is from Zambia and one is from England.
Okay.
And in our valley, so it's complicated. in our valley, we also have fields and forests, and we have on those fields and in the forests, we have a number of work areas. So we have a dairy farm that's just for our own consumption. We have vegetable growing. We have a beautiful herb and healing plant garden, which is about 3 acres, and it's absolutely lovely. And then also we have Turtle Tree Seed, which is the seed company where I work, and we have 3 gardens that all add up to about 3 acres of garden. Wow. And then in the woodland, we also do some harvesting of firewood, and we do maple syrup production
Oh my gosh, wonderful.
Also, yeah,
no.
so it's a lot.
Cool.
And then also in the valley, so we have about 20 houses that are life-sharing houses like the one that I live in. And then we also have a number of people who are, so we work with adults, but the age range is quite broad and many of them are aging. And we also have a lot of craft and fine craft studios. So we have woodworking, we have weaving, candle making, which is just purely beeswax candles and it smells amazing. And oh gosh, we have paper craft. And we have a wonderful bakery and a little cafe and coffee shop, and also a little co-op shop for our valley. So it's really like a village, and we call it Camphill Village.
Right.
Beautiful.
And yeah,
Beautiful.
Amazing.
The term life-sharing community, can you unpack that term for us?
yeah. So what that means is that my husband and I and our children live here in the valley in the village. And we share our lives with people with developmental challenges, and they share their lives with us. So I live in a household, for instance, as I said, with 5 folks, and many of them I've lived with for many, many years. And we know each other very well. And yeah, we share our lives. So we share celebrations and sadness and challenges and growth together.
Beautiful. And what's Camphill's origin story? How did it start?
So in the early 40s, when many people were fleeing Central Europe, a small group of people came to Scotland from Central Europe, and they were people who had already been working with people with developmental challenges. And they really felt called to that work. And as they experienced being refugees, they looked around and they saw that really people with developmental challenges at that time were really refugees within their own society. There were hospitalization possibilities, and there were staying at home and just being a perpetual child, basically. But none of those were really respecting the individual's need to find growth and to learn and be challenged by a career. And so those people created the first communities. And first they were schools for children. And then as those children grew up, they also grew to be adult communities where people could find vocations.
So obviously the story of the founding of Camphill is extraordinary. Do you think it could be done today?
Well, new Camphills are starting all over the world today. So, I mean, I don't know if and I think, of course, new ideas come up all the time.
Right.
But for instance, there are new Camphills that have been starting in Argentina and Colombia and all over. There's a relatively new one in Vietnam. It's some years old by now. And in Rwanda, they're beginning some, and Tanzania. So it's really, there are new Camphills starting all the time.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And there are 100 Camphill locations around the world. What connects them to each other? What's the tie that binds them?
The tie that binds them is the underlying philosophy of anthroposophy, which these young people, when they started the first Camphill, they came out of that background. And it's a philosophy that really honors the individual and the human spirit.
Camphill Copake is just one of the Camphill Association's many remarkable locations. And you have described it very well in all of the services. Perhaps you could explain maybe the ethos. So, knowing that to me, having worked in accommodated living, a term that we use at least in Canada, what would day one look like for one of your new community members?
Well, our community members who are going to be here for a longer time,
yes,
whether they're going to be folks with developmental challenges or whether they are going to be long-term volunteers, they have to visit beforehand,
Right.
and they have to get to know the place a little. And that can be, a week or 2 weeks, or it can be a month. In the case of folks with developmental challenges. Okay. And then they go home and they figure out whether this is something that they really want to do, because it's really a unique way of doing things. So it would mean, really living in a house, and then you find your workplace in one of these work areas. And that can change. You can shift from, if you are placed in the bakery and you find you're really not a baker, mm-hmm. maybe you can find your vocation on the estate, helping with firewood and helping with maple syrup and helping with upkeep of the land. Or maybe craft work is your thing, and you find your vocation in the wood shop. And so it has to be somebody who wants to do things.
Right.
It has to be somebody who is interested in learning and interested in doing things. And that's not for everybody. No. And that's absolutely fine. And so it really is, I would say day one is being happy that you've made the choice that you've made to join and enthusiastic to begin. That's day one.
Right. So I guess I'm going to focus my question on Camphill Copake. Do you find that many of your new community members are people from urban settings or rural settings?
Some of them have come through different Camphill communities. So there's another Camphill community down the road, Camphill Village Triform, which works with college-age folks.
Right.
And so we have people coming from there, and that's really wonderful because they've gone through already a vocational training.
Yes.
And many of them are already skilled weavers or skilled bakers or skilled gardeners. And so they have already a leg up. And then there are a lot of people who come both from rural and urban areas, but who come from group homes. And some of them have had activities and some of them have not. And so for some people, they found that a life of, consuming media is not particularly rewarding, and so they want to do something else. And also we have people who have come who have had their own apartments and lived on their own in an urban setting, who find themselves very lonely.
Right.
I think one of the most sort of heartbreaking things that somebody asked when they were first coming for their trial visit was, "I don't have to eat alone, do I?" And it was just,
that's so upsetting.
That just crushes you,
It does.
Yeah.
No, here we eat together. We're together here.
Wow.
The Camphill model is based on anthroposophy. Could you define and explain the term for our audience?
Oh,
I know it's a big question. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So it's the wisdom of the human being. The word translates as the wisdom of the human being. And it is, it's very, very broad.
It is.
There are aspects of it that touch on almost every area of life, from healing to farming to education and beyond. But essentially, I think it says human beings are part of a wider cosmos.
Yes.
We're part of the earth that we live on, and we're part of the spiritual world. And we have in us all of that. And
thank you very much.
Thank you. Has the Camphill model changed since its inception?
It has. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
In what ways?
I think in Copake, we're very traditional. We have these larger homes where there's a couple of folks with challenges and a couple of long-term volunteers living together. There have also been models where, for instance, in New Orleans, they have just a day program. They don't have any residential housing. Okay. Of course, Louisiana is a state that has very different support for people than New York does. We're pretty lucky in New York that there's quite a lot of state support for people. And there are places that I visited in Ireland, for instance, where it's just a little shop and one house, and everyone helps and works in the shop, and maybe there's a little garden next to it. But there's a whole range. There's really a whole range of community possibilities. I think in Rwanda, they also have, as part of their community, they also have many people who just come in for the day. And then there are places that are really all-encompassing in where people live and work. And some of them are rural and some of them are urban. And there's really a huge variety.
Very interesting.
The Camphill philosophy is no matter what anyone's outward disability may appear to be, the spirit, the essential core that makes us all human always remains whole. I, as somebody who's worked in social services and worked with people with disabilities since 1996, I don't think I've ever read a better way to describe abilities first. Is that what we're talking about here? Did I get the gist of it? Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. That is the core. Yep.
So wonderful.
It's beautiful.
And bringing back to the grow and growability for a moment, what is the Turtle Tree Seed Initiative?
So at Turtle Tree, we grow vegetable, herb, and flower seeds.
Okay.
So we're not just growing the vegetables, we're growing them and then on to seed production.
Yep.
And we have about a little over 300, probably about 390 different varieties of seeds that we care for.
Wow.
And each year we'll grow about 70 or 80 different seed varieties on our land. And through that whole process, we're working together with folks who have challenges, who have been with us for many years. We're working with young people from all around the world who have no experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And everything, and all together. And so we grow those vegetables, and then we grow them onto seeds, and then we harvest those, and we clean the seeds to be what we call packet ready, and then pack them, and we send them all over North America.
Wow.
So we ship, we have an online presence, and we have a catalog, and
Incredible. Yeah. Incredible. And what is the relationship between Turtle Tree Seeds and Camphill?
Turtle Tree is a part of Camphill Village. So
wonderful.
It's just one of the work areas we have, like our bakery or like our candle shop that is part of Camphill Village.
Perfect. That's amazing to have it right on site too. Everything you guys are doing is just being regenerated, recycled. Yep. Amazing. And your website mentions the Safe Seed Pledge. What is a safe seed, and why do you think we need to make a pledge about it?
Yeah, I mean, without going into too much of the details of the controversies around intellectual property rights, there are corporations who want to control the seed supply.
Right.
And some of that is through genetic manipulation, and some of that is through patenting.
Right.
And for us, we just feel like, seeds are freely given by the plants with a bit of work. And that it's essential that we honor that everyone who has come before us, all the work that they've done in getting seeds to the point where they are, and that we are able to pass that on without restriction into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Turtle Tree seeds are Demeter certified.
Yes.
Can we talk about the value of that to your group?
Yeah. I mean, the practices that we do that allow us to be Demeter certified are ones that we would do whether or not we were certified. However, those include, so with organic, we'll say pretty much everyone has kind of an idea of I know what organic is, right? And that's, there's a whole lot of things that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to use, chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides and all these different things. And the very best organic growers are also doing things like soil health improvement and composting and working with, field boundaries to make sure that there's lots of lively wildlife around. And lots of biodiversity, and they're doing great crop rotations and all of these things. And so that's all really important and actually required in biodynamics.
Right.
And so we have to set aside certain portions of our land for wildlife. and we have to do all of these things. And then also there's also a spiritual element where we recognize that we're not alone in our work. Not only are we working with all of the insects and the birds and the various plants and wildlife, but we're also working with the spiritual world as well.
And all of these elements that you used the word biodynamics. These are all elements of biodynamics?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you be able to explain the connection between the Demeter seed certification and biodynamics?
Oh, yes. So Demeter is just the international organization, and there's a chapter in the US which certifies biodynamic crops and produce.
Okay.
So they're just the sort of certifying organization. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then maybe just quick Cole's notes on biodynamics for our audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So biodynamic agriculture tries to take a really holistic view of the land and growing, and that includes people, and from the soil up to the stars.
Wonderful. I see a term come up in the Camphill world I really like, social agriculture. What does that term mean?
Yeah, it means working together on the land. It's just very basic. It's not, I think there's no specific magic to the term,
right.
But it is not necessarily something that's done.
Right.
You know, I think farming can be a very lonely practice, and it can be, you know, when you're just in your tractor cab for, 10, 12 hours. Mm-hmm. It can be very lonely. But what we try to do is to work together, and we work together with a variety of people, and we try to, encourage the young people who come to us that they can learn a bunch. And when they go out into the world, they know something, and and the folks with developmental challenges are also people who are real teachers in that. And so we're working together. Yeah.
So that connection to the land is a foundational idea for Camphill. Is this still, knowing that, there are Camphills that are in urban settings, is this still an important pillar for the organization?
Each Camphill has its own way, of course. I think for our village, it's absolutely foundational. And for many, it is. Yeah. And that's not to say that's for everyone, right. But it is for us. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And speaking of connection to the land, is the name Turtle Tree related to an indigenous name for what we call North America?
Well, it is, but it didn't start out that way.
Okay.
So it was the original founders of Turtle Tree were working, they trained in seed growing, and then they trained in Switzerland, and then they came back to the US, and they were looking for a farm to be on. And they sort of did one season there and one season somewhere else. And they were at the headwaters of the Mississippi on a farm that was giving them a few acres to work on. And the farmer said, now you guys have got to come up with a name. You can't just keep on running around and not have a name for your business. And it was quite a wet year. And one of the founders looked over and at one point had seen, I think it was a painted turtle, and it was laying eggs under an oak tree by the side of the field, like kind of a marshy end of the field. And it just struck him, and he thought, this is something really special. And he said, let's call our business Turtle Tree. And then after some years later, they found out that, of course, Turtle Island is an indigenous name for North America. And also they were at the headwaters of the Mississippi, which is this beautiful tree pattern on the turtle's back. And so it just
aligned. It
kind of all came together,
yeah.
Even though originally it was just, something that popped up. Yeah.
Wow.
Why is it so important for Camphill that it remains an inclusive space for people with and without disabilities?
Wow, that's a big question. I think, yeah.
It comes from a place of deep admiration.
Yeah. I would say, Almost that there isn't any other way to be how we want to be.
Right.
To work from a space of inclusion is just absolutely essential. It goes down to how we live, and all the way up to that we, as human beings, just need connection to one another.
Right.
And that's essential for all human beings, whoever you are.
Right. Thank you so much. Is there anything we missed that you maybe wanted to talk about?
Nothing comes to mind, but
we covered a lot. We did ask some pretty intense questions.
Where can people find out more, both about the Turtle Tree Seed Initiative and Camphill?
So Camphill Village has a website, and that is camphillvillage.org.
Perfect.
And Turtle Tree has a website, and that is turtletreeseed.org.
Wonderful.
And you can visit those and find out more about us.
Awesome.
Perfect. We'll make sure we put that on the link in the show notes then. Perfect. But before we sign off, there is one final question that we do ask all of our guests, and that is, what keeps you growing?
Oh my goodness, the people, and also the land, and also the seeds. Seeds are just amazing, and you always learn more. And I think any kind of any agriculture that you're doing, every single year, you're going to learn more stuff.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it with people, you're learning more from the land, and you're learning more from the people. And it's amazing. Yeah. And really exciting.
Beautiful.
Really exciting.
Beautiful.
Leah, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
If you like this show, please like and subscribe on YouTube and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're preparing a bunch of special extras for our fresh and nutritious newsletter subscribers. Sign up for free at growabilitypod.com. Growability is hosted by Joe Gansivlis and Holly Pugsley. Special thanks to this week's guest, Lia Babitch. Our show is produced by Adam Kaplan, Joe Gansivlis, and Holly Pugsley. Production support from Oliver Gansivlis, Evan Gansivlis, Scott Hahn, Kevin Labont, Paul Rogers, Dorentina Uka, and Alan Williamson. Holly Pugsley of Just Keep Growing art directed this episode and made sure the plants looked great. Audience strategy by Dorentina Uka and Tess Alcock. Our theme music is Wandering William by Adrian Walter and can be found on Soundstripe. Adam Kaplan, that's me, is Webisode's executive producer, and Sammy Orlowski is our senior creator. Thanks to Tech Alliance of Southwestern Ontario, including Farida Abdelnabi and Sarah Edmondson, for letting us shoot at their beautiful offices. Special thanks to Leanne Gansivlis for the support and yummy food, Hubert Orlowski for helping our podcast sound great, and Gabor Sass for making some great introductions. Growability is a Webisodes production and is produced with the support and participation of the team at The Patch and Hutton House.